You are listening to I'll Follow You, a podcast about creative process and what really goes on behind the scenes of an artistic life. My name is Allison Felis, and I love talking to musicians, writers, visual artists, and other brilliant thinkers about their working methods, obsessions, and pet projects. Guess what? Just by tuning in, you're part of the inner circle now. Today on I'll Follow You, I'm so delighted to be in conversation with visual artist and graphic designer Sadie Teper. Sadie is the founder and owner of 20-Some Design. 20-Some is a lady-powered feminist stationery and gift brand. Sadie's design background enables her to create bright and colorful hand-lettered designs that empower and inspire others to spread the message of positive change while still encompassing cheeky wit and feminist fun. Plus, she makes it a priority to donate more than 5% of her company's annual profits to organizations such as Planned Parenthood, Emily's List, the National Network of Abortion Funds, and Black Futures Lab. You can shop her online store at 20some.design or find her work in select bookstores and gift shops around the country. Much like Sadie's cards and stickers counter the enduring myth that feminists are nothing but a bunch of dour, angry killjoys, our chat today is full of laughs. We talk about the origin of her brand name, how the text on her first greeting cards was really just an extension of her own inner monologue, how her art classes in college taught her how to not take personal criticism too seriously, how going on a date with a Trump supporter made her realize she needed to get more vocal about her own political beliefs, the reason why the stationery industry isn't particularly cutthroat, and the big difference between someone suggesting a topic for a card and someone suggesting the exact wording for a card. And of course, if you're listening to this on or around the day it's originally released, this is the perfect time to browse the 20-Some website for all your various holiday card needs. Head on over to my site, queenofpeaches.com, for links to her shop and other show notes. And now, my conversation with Sadie Teper. Sadie Teper, it is a delight to have you here and to be chatting with you today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Because you're like an old hand at the podcast, because you have a previous episode up, right? Like talking about your work and everything.
I think this is my third podcast, so now I'm like almost an expert. I'm getting there.
You are a total pro. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Sadie Teper, you are the impresario behind 20-Some Design, cards and stationery and all sorts of beautiful things that, I have read the bio and the information, in the intro here. But tell us a little bit about your company. I mean, just from your in your own words.
Yeah, so my company is 20-Some Design. Right now I'm predominantly stationery, cards, stickers, notepads, paper products, but the goal is to expand that soon. The company motto phrase right now is honoring occasions the patriarchy overlooks. It is a mouthful. But so in my work, I really try to focus on like uplifting women and uplifting like inclusion in all sorts of ways. And I use the word honoring because it's not always happy occasions. We're not always celebrating, but it's like acknowledging things all across people's lives. And so that's what I focus on mostly through,
The card that I was like obsessed with when I was like sort of just reminding myself of all of your beautiful designs and looking at your website was the what's the phrasing on like congrats on being intentionally pregnant, like
yeah it says you're pregnant on purpose, like
pregnant on purpose, so, like that's the
perfect,
phrasing, which I love.
People love that one. Well, and that one like feels so true because like entering my 30s, friends getting pregnant, I'm like, what? Oh, and it has been also brought to me that friends in their late 40s have been feeling the same way. Like that one hits on two ends.
Oh, so. Nice. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, exactly.
Right? I didn't either until someone pointed it out, and I was like, I'm glad this hits double. So
just expanding the range of people who are into what you're providing. Well, so tell us,
Exactly.
and also, I mean, I'll put the links in the show notes and everything, but like, tell us right off the bat for people who want to have cards for all these amazing occasions, like where they can find you. I mean, because you're like distributed everywhere these days, yeah.
Yeah, almost everywhere. I wish. So the best place is my website because it's the only place that has everything. So that's 20some dot design. Um, and then you can find everything. So right now my products are in like over 200-ish independent stores across the country. So those are
So
like your little
cool.
mom and pop gift shops. Yeah, and so they're all over the place, but most of them only carry like 10 to 15 different designs, so you'll never be able to find everything. And then there's also some cards in Paper Source and Barnes and Noble, but they are even more selective and they carry like two designs. So you can find me all over the place, but if you're looking for something specific, website is definitely the best spot to go.
So, all right. So Papercraft, which is just, how did you even come to Papercraft? I mean, I know that's like a thing now, and there is sort of like, oh, Etsy and like all the makers fairs and stuff like that. But it's like, how did you go from, because I know you through book design, like full disclosure, we
Hmm.
worked together for a little while.
Yeah.
And so I know you through like book design, but like tell us your journey. Like, how did you get from where you started to like where
Yeah.
you are with your biz now? Because I feel like you hit a lot of different high points and low points,
Yeah.
through,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
before you got to where you are now.
Yeah. So I guess it should have been obvious that I was always like obsessed with stationery. As a kid, I remember for my bat mitzvah, you have like fancy invites, like as if a wedding invite. And here I am, like a 12-year-old that was the most anal and particular about these invites. And I made my parents spend a fortune on them because they like had to look a certain way. And in retrospect, like no other 12-year-olds really cared that much. But I would like, I was always obsessed with these things. And I was always like the weirdo had like a million journals and a million pens. And so like I always knew that was an interest. Fast forward to like my adult life. Well, you said when we were working together, like I had kind of done a bunch of different types of design at that point in my career. Like I had worked on websites, then books, and it was kind of like those are very opposite these days and all over the place. And I didn't really know like what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go next. So what I did in my free time, because I was just kind of feeling like, all right, where do I go from here? Was I started a project. This is where 20 some comes from. Um, to design 20 some of different things because I had like a mentor at that time, like another designer who said she had designed something every single day for a year. And I was like, well, that's just not my vibe. I take weekends off. Like I honor my weekends. Um, but I was like, what if I do something like every like business day? And I was like, okay, I also know that like I'm a very sporadic energy type of person. So like some days I'll work for 8 hours and some days I'll work for 0 hours. So I was like, as long as I have as many items as there are business days by the end of the month, like it's considered valid. I'm like, well, there's always 20 some days. And so the very origin of the project, I was doing all different stuff. I was doing things like icons and logos and web and color palettes and flower illustrations. And I just was like, every month picked a different thing that kind of seemed interesting to me. And it got to be a couple months from Valentine's Day. And I was like, oh, what if I do 20 some Valentine's Day cards just like as a fun thing? And I was starting to learn a little bit more about like iPad lettering. I had done like physical calligraphy and like pen and ink kind of lettering before, but never digitally. And so I made 20 some Valentine's Day cards and I listed them on Etsy, just figuring, what the heck, why not? And they started to take off. And like at the time, I thought they took off. And I have looked back since, and like my first 20 sales were all friends, but bless them for supporting me. And it was so sweet. And then it kind of just like slowly grew from there because I was like, okay, well, this is enough proof of concept. Like when I got the first few sales from strangers, I was like, okay, we can do this. And then it wasn't super strategic at the beginning. I saw a discount to buy stickers online. I was like, oh, let me design a sticker. And so I designed a sticker. And then it was like, oh, let's design a magnet. And I kind of was like just doing all the different things. And initially, I wasn't like so structured and like it has to be a feminist message, but like that was just what I gravitated towards. Like I was designing what was important to me, and that was kind of what I did. And so it just kind of eventually I leaned in deeper once I realized what I was unintentionally doing. But at the
Well, and
beginning, it was
it
kind of
also
just
needs to be
like,
said that this was also happening like right at the end of the Trump era when everyone's like, And so it's
Yes.
like was very much on
Yes.
everyone's brains. And so it kind of lined up nicely, probably, because yeah, of course you were thinking
Oh
about all these
yeah.
things. Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Because I those first Valentine's Day cards were 2020. And so a lot of
Ah,
people think like, oh, this is a COVID business. And I mean, I grew it during COVID, yes, but like I had kind of already started beforehand. So like the seed was already planted. It didn't come out of my COVID boredom. So who knows? Either way. But yes, it was like 2020 was like the bulk of when a lot of these kind of transitions and things were happening. Um, and like something that is also funny that you mentioned, like in 2016, um, that's when I was doing more like pen and ink calligraphy, and I had done a whole like series of like calligraphing all the stupid stuff that Trump was saying. And like I didn't sell those or anything, but like it was kind of like a natural thing. And like I had sold a few buttons that I was like donating the proceeds and things like that, that the business wasn't fully fledged, but like I was still interested in like similar kind of concepts, I guess.
yeah, we still my husband Brian, who's also an artist, he loves your work. He thinks your lettering is just gorgeous, and we still have a vote for Kamala and Joe sticker like on
Yeah.
his art box. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see if any more of them this year. We'll come back around.
Oh my God. Um so yeah, I mean, so how did that then segue into this, this sort of honoring the occasions that patriarchy overlooks? Like how did that sort of like flow into yeah, these sort of like political things and then expanding beyond that?
Yeah. Yeah. So 2020 was like very, very political. Everything I was doing was like more political. And then 2021 and time rolls and it's exhausting. It's really, really exhausting, like trying to create with the news cycle because I found
Mm,
myself like forcing myself to create a new design when something happened. And I just wanted to start to do things that were like a little bit more longevity. Um, and I had started doing more greeting cards because I realized that stickers and of this assortment of things were fun, but if you're going to have a successful brand, like you really have to have a lot of greeting cards because that's just like the bread and butter of what people are buying. And so as I decided like what the phrases were going to be on my greeting cards, like it was things like celebrating breakups because a lot of people always see breakups as a bad thing. And to me, it was like, well, that might be true sometimes, but sometimes it's like you're getting out of a toxic relationship. So it was like things like that. It was a thing like the pregnancy card where it's like, okay, like, we're just like kind of reframing things. And it was really just like my inner monologue. Like it wasn't super, super
I love that.
intentional, but it was, yeah, I mean, it was kind of stuff like that. And then like I have another card that is like pretty popular. It says, "How's your vag and the baby?" And that was another one that's like, all right, we're just like recentering the mom in this equation because so often we just like focus right on the baby, but it's like they've been through a lot. So it's that kind of stuff. And as I kept just thinking of more cards, like I wanted to celebrate occasions. Like I have a card now that celebrates like being debt free and things like that. That's like that's a huge deal, but like that's not what we like traditionally celebrate. And so I was just trying to reach more of these occasions that deserve celebration or deserve noticing, but aren't like the typical just birthday or just wedding or pretty much just weddings for women. So everything else besides weddings.
Well, so and again, part of what, it's, yeah, all honoring these occasions is also super important, but also like your design sensibility is also what makes these so winning because it's like your lettering and the color schemes that you use, it's very cheeky, it's very warm, it's very
Yeah.
friendly. And so yeah, talk to me a little bit more about that, about yeah, just this design sensibility and like where it came from and yeah, and you're sort of like your journey as an artist in terms of yeah sort of the colors and patterns and shapes that you like identify with. We were just joking about like the fact
Yeah.
that the shirt that you're wearing right now looks like one of your designs even though you didn't design it, so your aesthetic is like very well honed.
Yeah. I think that was also part of the like project that I started with, like doing 20 some of things, because at the very beginning, my style was not honed at all. Like my
Mm,
first stickers and stuff like looked all over the place. And it's just a matter of creating so much that like the
mm,
more you do, the more you gravitate. And so I kept forcing myself to try to do different styles and different things. And then like I realized a little bit farther and I went that like the message is what's most important. So that's why my cards always feature like bold type and like if there's an illustration, the illustration is second. Whereas a lot of greeting card designers kind of flip it. Like the illustration is first and the text is second. Um, in terms of colors, I mean, I played with like a lot of colors. I collected a lot of images and things like that like I just liked. And over time, I kind of, started using a more specific palette. And I still try to like bring in new things, but a lot of it is just, yeah, a lot of time. And I realized you don't really figure out those things until you truly create for yourself. Because like working for
Mm,
other people, I was always creating like what the client or what someone else wanted, which is a different fun challenge. But that's why I started this project too, because I was like, I don't know what my style is. I've only
mm.
ever designed within the constraints of what someone else wants. So yeah, it was like a really interesting experiment for me. And I didn't know this is where I'd wind up, but I guess now looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, yes, it makes sense. Like everything that I choose to decorate my apartment, like is the same color palette, and it just, you like what you like, and I slowly got here.
Well, that's going to be, I mean, yeah, when you put it in that sense, I mean, that's got to be like really rewarding where it's like you put the time in to like hone your style, and then now that your business has taken off and it's like really successful, it's like, yeah, people are coming here for me, for like because
Yeah.
they like my vibe and my aesthetic, and
Yeah.
that's got to feel
Yeah.
really good that that it's not there's not outside influence like pulling the strings. It's like, this is me. Like, that's the reward of putting yourself out there, right?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, it totally is. And it's so exciting when people see my cards, but like I have 150 card designs now. So like nobody, even me, remembers what every single one of them says or looks like at times. But like because my style is so unique, someone can see it and know that it's mine. Like that's what's really
Mm.
cool is that I have friends in stores and they send me a picture because they see the front, like that's gotta be Sadie's. Like it looks just like them. So that's yeah, that's really cool that like people know. So
I think the real test is going to be when someone gives you one of your own cards at a certain point. Like,
oh, yeah. That has not I mean, that has not like accidentally happened. Like I've had people do it as jokes,
sure.
absolutely. But I've also had like friends of friends like receive one of my cards and they like knew that it was mine and their friend had bought it like accidentally.
Oh,
So
cool. Oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
which is really cool that they're like, wait, I actually know this one. But yeah,
Oh,
no one has accidentally given it to me yet, but we'll see with time, maybe.
time will tell. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So talk a little bit about your background as an artist then too, because again, like we talked about, you were working in different media and you were, were working for different companies. And so I mean, is your background like in visual art, or where did you start in that sense?
Yeah. So I was always interested in art. In college, I went to a big state school, but I was like in the art program at a school. So like I always knew I wanted to do art and design. My degree is technically industrial design, but like it's adjacent to graphic design.
Yeah,
So it
absolutely.
was always something, yeah, I knew I wanted to do. And even when I was younger, like I remember in high school, like I spent all my hours hanging out in the art room. Like that was just where I belonged. I never really thought much of it. But yeah, then once I graduated college, went out into the real art world, yeah, I kind of just worked in different places, took jobs that sounded interesting without necessarily being like strategic career wise. It was just like, oh, okay, well, this sounds cool. I'll enjoy it. So yeah, it was kind of just like a sporadic, all over the place kind of thing. Um, and I just kind of went with it. Yeah, it wasn't until I started doing this on my own that I feel like I really kind of figured out what I wanted, I guess.
Well, and I love too that like in the way that you just narrated that was so chill, because it's like it doesn't sound like you have any art trauma, because it's like I know a lot of people who like had like horrible art teachers, who were really discouraging, or like their parents were like, thou shalt not do
Yeah.
art.
Well, my parents were definitely always supportive, but I think a lot of the reason that I studied industrial design, not graphic design, is because in my mind, like that was the more lucrative design. That
Sure.
was how I was going to succeed. And in the long run, I still have come back around. And yes, the salaries are much less as a graphic designer. I was not wrong for having those thoughts, but it is like that's what brings me joy. I definitely had some traumatizing professors. Um, I remember like my senior year of college, we had like a big senior show that was your final project. And everyone's posters, the point of it was like the product you designed, not the design of the poster. But I had more fun designing the poster. Should have known graphic design.
A little
But
tip
either
off.
way,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I should have known. But like my poster was like bright pink and in your face, and it wasn't poorly designed. It just wasn't what my professor wanted it. And he told me that I couldn't be in the senior show because my project wasn't good. And in reality, the project was fine. It just, I like had to just like bite my tongue, and I went and I changed the poster to white and to look like everyone else's. And oh, magically, I was then allowed to participate in the senior show. And at the time, I mean, yeah, I remember like sobbing and being like, I'm never going to succeed. And now looking back, I would have been like, I should have just stuck it to him and said, F off, I don't care. Because in the long run, that show did not get me a job. It did not make my career. But when you're like 20 and in college, I thought that was like the only thing that mattered. So,
Yeah,
yeah. So, yeah,
that
but
sucks.
it sucks. But then once I got in the real world, I was like, oh, yeah, this does not matter. But, it took a little bit. But once I got there, now I'm like, oh, well, it happens.
Well, A, it happens. And B, I love that it didn't like, again, because I know people that, yeah, have had the experience where they get so much criticism that, your style is wrong or the way that you approach the art is wrong, that then it turns people off from even making art, So I love that it didn't
Yeah.
stop you, that you were just like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
Well,
Like, yeah, I'll just revise to get
I
it through.
mean, yeah, it's a shame. And to be fair, I did also have some other really good professors that were supportive. So I feel like that kind of balanced out. Like this one was pretty shitty, but there was another one that like was very kind. And so, yeah, because if you had only bad professors like that, yes, I don't know that I would have survived. But I did have a few saving graces in there that were like, you're fine. Like this isn't that big a deal. So, yeah. But yeah, I can see how that would really, yeah, wreck you. I mean, I've always kind of had this just like I don't care personality. So I guess that's just a good thing.
Well, yeah, especially like, yeah, when you're putting yourself out in the marketplace like that kind of resilience. Yeah, seems like it's pretty handy.
You have to. But yeah, I do think a lot of that, yeah, was like learned from art school. Like I got used to stuff being criticized, and you learn to not take it personally. Like I remember having other students in my classes that were not in the art school. They just like took an art class for fun. And when they were criticized, like they would cry and be really upset. Whereas
Mm.
most of us were used to it. We're just like, you just have to deconnect. And we got used to that, but yeah, it can be very hard to do.
Yeah, it's a brutal process. I mean, it's like, developing calluses on your hands as a weightlifter or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I just feel like
Well,
my ego is not bruised.
so the other end of the spectrum, I want you to brag on yourself because you are a Louis Award winning artist,
Oh.
designer. Because I just saw that you were doing the takeover on that account on Insta. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about, like being honored as an artist for your designs.
Yeah. So the Greeting Card Association, a lot of people, I never knew that there was such a thing as the Greeting Card Association, but they have awards every year for like the best greeting cards. They have a trade show. They do all sorts of like stuff in the industry. And every year, I have submitted to the awards for multiple years now. It's been a couple. And last year I actually won one, which is super exciting. And the way they judge them is it's all judged by like a big group of people, and it's a mixture of like other card makers as well as people who own retail stores, people who are buyers for big box stores, reps in the industry. So it's kind of like a group of peers in some way. It's like a vote of all those, and so you can submit cards on all different topics, and then they vote, and the best of the best are recognized. So it's really cool. It's like, yes, I'm a celebrity in the greeting card association world, but the rest of the world, it means absolutely nothing. But actually the cool thing that they've started doing to try to like bring it to the rest of the world is that there's this partnership now with Barnes and Noble, and so they're selling some of the finalist cards at Barnes and Noble. So the awards are announced in like April, and the cards are there in like June. So if you go now, there might not be any, but when you go like in the spring, there's like a little featured section of the finalist greeting cards. So, which is pretty cool that like you can go and shop the best of the best.
That's amazing. Yeah, next time there's a Barnes Noble near where my sister lives in Skokie, so we're gonna have to go up there and check it out. Yeah, in the spring or next summer when the new ones are released.
Yeah. So yeah, which is just a cool thing they do, and people probably still also buy them and don't really realize, but like it's cool, it's fun.
Yeah, as long as they're buying them. I mean, if they don't realize what they are, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
As long as I get my money, then who cares?
So going back, touching back into your school years. So was your undergrad? I mean, where was your feminist awakening? Like, was this just something that was always baked in for you? Was it something that you read, at a certain impressionable
Yeah.
time? Like, how did that, because it's, again, like I think of that as so synonymous with your brand with 20 some design. 20, yeah.
Yeah.
And so how did that play into to your
So
formation as an artist?
I don't think it really happened fully until after college because I'm very lucky to say that like growing up, it was never a question. I was never told I like couldn't do anything or couldn't be anything. Also, I just was always interested in girly activities. So like no one ever told me no, I couldn't go hang out in the art
Hence
room
the
all day
pink
every
poster
way.
board, right? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, so things like that, I just like I didn't care. I don't think I really noticed like the disparities of the world. And like when I was in middle school, high school, I don't know exactly what years, my dad worked for Planned Parenthood. So like
Wow.
that was just baked into my identity. And I don't think I even would have identified as a feminist because I didn't realize that there were people who didn't agree
Mm.
with how I saw the world necessarily, which is a very like privileged place to be, but it is who I am. And then after college, when I started working, and I think I just saw the world in bigger pictures and kind of realized, yes, a lot of what was going on and a lot of how the world worked. And I actually read a book, All the Single Ladies by Rebecca Traister. And
Oh,
I
love
like,
Rebecca Tracer. So good. So good. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that was the first time that I think like I finally was able to like, I don't know, articulate or kind of see the world through like a certain lens. So yeah, I think it was probably then that I like started identifying stronger in that way, even though like those values had always been there. I just didn't know they weren't there for other people, I guess. So, and it's also so funny thinking like growing up, like we didn't have constant access to the internet. So it's like you just didn't know, like there was no TikTok, thank God. I would have hated it. But, it's just like it was sometimes harder to see exactly like the microcosms of the world that were out there. So, yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, this is a whole separate conversation too, but like, I feel like things weren't as outwardly politicized until sort of like
Yes.
all the like Fox News people started saying like
Yes.
politics are the only thing that anyone is allowed to care about ever again,
Exactly. Exactly. Like growing up, like my family identified as Democrats, but it wasn't like so villainized one party versus the other. If it was like, oh, someone is a Republican, it was like, okay, whatever. It wasn't like this huge, I mean, looking back, yes, the ideological differences are absolutely there. But yes, it just wasn't as like polarizing. So it didn't matter as much, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, which again is, a privilege to grow up that way. But also, yeah, I just feel like, yeah, the sea change in the way that now you really do
Yeah.
have to sort of like wear your heart on your sleeve in that sense and just be like, okay, I'm standing up for
Yeah.
what I stand up for. And that's just kind of
Yeah.
the cost of
Yeah. And
existing publicly.
yeah, totally. And one of the other things is like before I had started this business, so it probably was like 2018-ish, like I thought my views were very outspoken, but I somehow wound up on a date with a guy who was a Trump supporter. And it obviously didn't work out, but it just made me realize I was like, why would he think that I would go out with him? Why did he not know? And then I was like, oh, I guess I'm not speaking up enough, or I'm not putting this out there in the world, because if he didn't know that about me, then like, whatever. So it was like a silly little thing, but it made me realize I'm like, I need to be even more vocal because I don't want to like, this isn't for me. And I want to know like what is for me. So
And that's again like a big part of what you do with your business too, is that you raise funds for causes that you believe in, which I think is amazing.
I definitely try to. I mean, it's weird profiting off of political things and values at times. So I try to give back money, but at the same time recognize that like someone's got to do it. I still need to get paid for my time, but I'm going to donate what I can. But yeah, it can be very weird when it's like, how do you make this right? Because you want to like say things, but you also don't want to profit off of causes necessarily. So donating money is like, okay, then it feels like everyone wins here, right? I hope so.
Well, and also you're very upfront about it. I mean, that's like on the front page of your website is you're just like, I donate money to like places like XYZ.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have to in this day and age. You have to state your values loud and clear. Otherwise, yeah, it just, yeah, you never know who will find out what. It's like, just want it all to be out there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, better, I mean, it's again, it's a weird way to have to live, but sometimes it's better to just be like, okay, hate me up front, rather than like find out
Yes,
later.
a
you know?
1000%. Well, that's what I do I do a lot of in-person trade shows. And a lot of people gravitate to my booth because of the colors and because of the fun. But like objectively, I could be saying anything from a distance. It's just, you like the colors, you like the aesthetic. So now what I've started doing is like I sell little stickers for laptops, but I blow them up like really big, like 2 feet wide, and put them like at the top of my booth, like kind of as like little decor. But I put some of my most polarizing stickers up there. Like I have one that says "Don't date Republicans," and I had that up at my trade show in Atlanta.
Oh
And
shit, in Atlanta. Oh my God.
but it was actually really good. I absolutely got nasty comments, but then people would also see from a distance, be like, "Oh my God, that's my person," and they would come like running over. So you get the total opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, and then someone would walk by and be like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Great, then don't come in, because if you get closer, you're not going to like anything else either." So I found, but it was interesting because I did the same thing when I was at a trade show in New York, and it wasn't as effective in New York because
Mm,
it's just like the climate there is very different. And so people are
yeah.
like, "Well, yeah, no shit." But in Atlanta, then, it was like either one or the other. So that's what I've just started doing. I'm like, you know what? Come or don't, but I'm just like making the message loud and clear.
So what's that circuit like doing these trade shows? I mean, because are you traveling a lot these days for those, or how often do you have to be
So
out on the floor like that?
yeah, I'm doing way less like this next year. In 2023, I only did three of them. In 2022, I think I did three of them as well. So the problem is that trade show season is like January, February, and like July. So it's usually like a couple back to back. So thankfully next year I'm slowing down. I'm only doing one in January, and that's it, because they are exhausting. But yeah, last year I did like two in January, another one in April, and they're all over the country. Like I've done them all the way from New York to California and Atlanta and Vegas. Yeah, I think that's most of them. But yeah, it's a lot, and it's exhausting because they range from 2 days to 5 days, where you literally have to like build a booth and hang out for 5 days selling yourself. And
And you're
yeah,
a
this is
solo
why I'm
business, so
finally
like, do you have anyone come and help you, or is it just you on the clock the whole time?
no, it's just me. I mean, I could hire someone to help. There's no reason I couldn't, but it's just it's hard. It's hard to get someone else who can like sell your business in the same way, especially if they're not working for me full time. Like if I had a full time employee, then maybe I would like trust them to come with me someday. But at this point in time, like it's just, yeah, it's hard because you have to know everything. If someone likes one card, you have to be able to like, oh, there's another thing that I think would go well with it.
Right.
And a temporary employee for a week might be an extra set of hands for setup, but they just don't really know things as deeply. So someday, hopefully, I will have that help. But right now, it is
When the
just
empire
me.
grows, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the good thing is that doing these trade shows, there's a lot of other card people that I'm friends with. And so like we help each
Mm,
other out. Like
sure.
we know each other's stuff well enough that if we go to the bathroom or things like that, like there's someone else like, who's like, oh, she'll be right back, whatever. And we kind of have each other's backs in that sense. So that's why I feel more comfortable doing it alone, because I'm never like truly alone. I have friends around in that sense. So yeah.
Well, that was another thing that I was super curious about, is just like the papercraft world, like what that's like, and how big is it? And yeah, it's like I'm glad to hear that it
Yeah.
sounds very cozy and happy. It's not cutthroat. It's not
Yeah.
secretly like
It is. So greeting cards are such a friendly industry. And
hmm,
the reason is because if you go to like a store, a gift store, they're going to carry cards from 20, 30 different brands, because it's not like the kind of thing where like they might carry like one style of shoe or one style of purse or something like that. Like fashion, I know, is more cutthroat. But greeting cards, because they usually have a card wall of hundreds of cards, and they like try to diversify what they have. Um, so we're super, super friendly, because you also know you're not in direct competition with someone. Like a buyer might buy from both of you or from neither of you if like the brands don't fit, because a lot of these retail stores have like a very specific vibe as well. Like they really like colorful or happy, or they really like just plain white, or whatever the heck they might like. Um so it's like you don't take it personally. Like some of my good friends, our styles are so different that like like they're gonna buy from me or you, but not both of us. And people who are similar, like we will literally take buyers to our friends' booths at trade shows. Like if you
Nice.
like me, you're gonna like her too.
Oh,
And
nice.
like yeah, and when they buy greeting cards, people are usually spending between $100 and $500. They might go up to like $1,000, but it's pretty easy to buy from a lot of people because the orders are pretty small. And this is for a retail store, like one person buying hundreds of dollars of greeting cards. Yes, I get it's excessive, but if you're buying it to fill your store, you could easily buy $200 worth of cards from 8 different people, and still like that's a pretty reasonable investment. So yeah, so it's a very friendly world, and everyone helps each other out. Absolutely. So
So is
it's a
that
nice place to
primarily
be.
where you're getting your business from, is from these shows, or do you still like go out and like hand sell like in the city and stuff?
So a lot of them comes from trade shows, and a lot of it, yeah, is cold pitching. I don't as often like show up at stores because a lot of the times people that are working the stores are not actually the buyers for the stores. So
True,
like
true,
if
yeah.
I'm in a store, like I'll say hello, but I'm not like showing up like with a bunch of products kind of thing. But I send postcards and emails and like a lot of just like reach out so that stores know you exist is really what it is. Yeah, it's like a weird, very traditional world, but that's how it goes. So, and it works. It's slow, but it works. Like send sample cards, send little notes, and because like, what's the best way to like sell your greeting cards? It's like to send them greeting cards. So,
Well,
like,
like as
yeah, do
you're
stuff like
describing
that.
that, like it, it's like obviously there's, all kinds of, businesses online that do like digital e-cards that sing to you or whatever. But I was
Yeah,
thinking like in a way you're almost like a plumber where it's like there's never not going to be a market for greeting cards, right? It's like
yeah,
you can't outsource being a plumber. It's like you can't digitize being
yeah,
a plumber, and you can't do that to Papercraft. It's like people want
yeah.
cards. People want
People
those
want
physical
it.
objects. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why like birthday cards is always the biggest category because like people will always be having birthdays. Like that's never going to change. And so
And you still
that's,
kind of
yeah,
look like a dick if you don't show up with a birthday card, right? Like,
exactly. You still have to show up with one. Exactly. Exactly. And like, yeah, these occasions are always going to happen. And it's nice to show up with something. And like, it's like a lot of people also treat it like as like a memory. Like people like
mm.
it's a snapshot in time, which is like wholesome and beautiful. So a lot of people like hold on to their cards forever. So yeah, it's
I
nice
have
to
a
think
big
about it like that.
folder of Christmas cards from the past, holiday cards for the past couple of years where I just, we keep them with our ornaments, and, we actually leave them up all year. Like I have like a place in our dining
That's so
room where we kind of
sweet.
keep them up on a ledge. And so then like
Yeah.
around this time of year when we start getting the new ones for the new year, we take that old batch down. But
Yeah.
yeah, I keep them all because it's like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice.
Exactly. It's like happiness. Like I have a whole wall of all the cards that I've gotten, ugly or not. I still hang them up. So like, it's fun to have.
So what kind of trends are you seeing like in papercraft? Like like is it something that is, how much has it changed like year to year? I mean, are there new trends that are really
Yeah.
discernible, like with like you said, like with the fashion world where it's like, oh, this color is in and that color is out now?
Yeah.
Or does it move
I
more
don't think
slowly?
I think it's there aren't as many trends with like stuff like that. Like the kinds of products are always the same, like cards are always there, but the trends are like pop culture things on cards and
Mm-hmm.
on products. Like, and I really try not to do that because it's exhausting and I hate it. Um, but yeah, like people because it's also like just paper, it's really easy to produce so quickly. It does has a very short life cycle.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
did feel
like
like there was
if
a minute when
something
all of a sudden I started seeing Schitt's Creek references on every paper,
yeah,
everything. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So like whenever there's a big quote or a celebrity does something crazy or like all this Taylor Swift stuff, like tomorrow there will be cards for sale with that kind of stuff. So it's really easy. Like I see people get very sucked into that and like those are the kind of businesses that like you have to constantly churn or you're going to struggle because like by next week like yeah, Schitt's Creek is out and something new is in. And that's why I try not to do that kind of stuff very often because it's exhausting to keep up with it. So I try to have every now and then, like, yes, there are topical things, but I try to design stuff with more longevity so that and that's just a personal stress decision more than anything. Cause yeah, that pop culture stuff, like it sells, it does well as much as I like hate to admit it sometimes.
But it's like flash and like explosion and then
Yeah,
disappears. Yeah.
exactly. Like it can be definitely like a money grab kind of thing. And like people, yeah, monetize on it, but yeah, it's like it's up and it's down, yeah, just as quickly as it happens. So
Yeah. Um, well, so what keeps you motivated like through those sort of ups and downs? I mean, if you said, you're not really chasing like those pop culture kind of tie-ins, like what
yeah,
things are you looking for that like helps push you to the next level with like the next batch that you're going to release for like the next season or
yeah,
whatever?
yeah. So something that I've been doing recently that's really helped with that, because yeah, it's like you kind of reach a point where like, I don't know what to do next. Is I've been collaborating with other businesses, and not like greeting card businesses, like totally different businesses. Um, and then creating a bunch of cards around like their topic of business. So the last one I just did was with a engagement ring diamond company, which traditionally I would not have thought, like engagement rings are definitely not something like overly feminist. But this company does all like sustainable lab grown diamonds,
Oh
and they
wow.
work with a lot of queer couples and like
Oh
just
wow.
non-traditional things because they've like tried to make themselves inclusive. I'm like, I love that. So with them, the company is called Plum Diamonds. We designed a whole bunch of greeting cards around like love and weddings and romance. But we also made a point to do things that were like not super typical. Like we have one that's like unceremonious wedding for people who are, just getting married and signing the paperwork and things like that that are not always like what you think of as your standard wedding, but that's all the more reason to do it. And so like
I
we
would have
did
been
things for queer
delighted to get
couples.
unceremonious wedding because that's what my husband and I
Yeah,
did. Yeah.
exactly. See, I'm like, there needs to be a card for that. You still deserve
Yeah.
to like celebrate that. So exactly. So yeah, so we try to do stuff like that. My next collection coming out in January is with a company called Candle Tit. And what they do is they make candles out of molds of boobs.
Nice.
But what they do that's like really cool is that she does a lot of custom molding of people that are like going through mastectomies or top surgery or things
Mm-hmm.
like that, as like more of like a preservation as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So like it can be fun, but can be serious. So like the entire collection of cards focuses on boobs, and some of them are just like fun boob jokes, and some of them are like intended for someone like going through breast cancer or going
Wow.
through like some kind of surgery. Um, and then working with these companies also, like I let them be the experts because like I don't know deep into like these worlds, and by like having them behind me, like they're the ones who bring the expertise like about things like the appropriate phrases for someone with breast cancer, stuff like that. But like, sure, I could do some research, but like, it's good to have someone who like knows these worlds deeper.
Right.
Um, and so I want to keep going into more maybe heavy hitting topics like as I go, but I was like, I have to do a few that are fun and more lighthearted, and then like can kind of like, I would love to do like a whole series of like abortion cards, but I have to find like the right partner to do some of these kind of things because like I have one or two cards about all these topics, but I don't have the knowledge to like go super, super deep, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, and I love that too, because that sort of is like a cool midway point between, like you were saying, like as a freelancer, where it's like somebody else is calling the shots for like what your design looks like
yeah,
versus being completely on your own where you're coming up with it. Like I love this as like a midway between those
yeah,
2 points.
totally. Yeah. And what I always do is I use their brand colors as the colors I design in, but the style of the lettering and everything looks just like the rest of mine. So you might buy one of those and it says it on the back that it's from a collection, but if you see them from the front, you wouldn't necessarily know that it's part of like a specific collection. But then when you see them as a whole, like they're all one color palette and they're all like very cohesive. But and so yeah, it challenges me because I got very stuck in my ways of using the same colors and things like that. So it helps me branch out and like change up. And then it makes your work better when someone else gives you feedback, because like a lot of them they're like, well, did you try this? Did you try that? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I didn't. And so I still have like the final say on the design, assuming they sign off like on the language and everything. But it's just helpful to have like other opinions and like pushing me to do better. So I like that too.
Well, and that's also interesting too, in terms of like, yeah, are there topics that you haven't made cards for yet that you want to and you just haven't gotten to them yet? Like that's
Yeah.
I didn't even
Oh,
think about that,
so
but yeah.
many. So many. I mean, everything just from like certain holidays, like I don't have any Thanksgiving cards. It's not really a huge market, but like it would be nice to have, to like things like I would love to have like actual more like feminist cards, like things about like menopause or stuff like that, that like are important moments in someone's life. But like, I really don't have experience on that one yet. So like, I haven't quite gotten there. But there's a lot of topics that, yeah, I would still like to cover. But it's just, like, so right now I have, oh God, 130, 150 card designs.
Yeah, wow, that's
Whereas
a
like
lot.
I know, right, it sounds like a lot, but some of these like fully fledged independent brands will have 300 some cards before they even start like discontinuing the ones that don't sell. So it's like
Wow.
I have to double the amount I have before I mean, I don't have to, but I can double the amount I have before it even gets to be like too many per se. So that's the goal. So that's why I haven't even gotten to a lot of these topics yet, because I only have 150. I don't have 300 yet. I got time to get there.
So the 20 some ethos is still at play. Like do 20 some at a
Yeah,
time per month. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I know. And I've been releasing, I probably released like 30 cards this year, which is still a lot, but it's like at 30 a year, it still takes a lot of years to like get up that high. So,
Yeah,
and
because I
I
was
also
gonna say,
try
like,
to,
how actively do you still just like mess
yeah,
around for your own, like, sort of keeping your skills up?
yeah, I not as much as I should, but I try to. But I also like I go through like very intense periods of like designing a lot and then designing none, which is just the way, unfortunately, the energy goes. So like this past like 2 months, I designed, oh, probably 40 some new things between cards, buttons, stickers, like all that. And now I probably won't design anything for like 2 months. And then I'll probably have like another period like that. Because a lot of times what I'll do is I'll like collect a lot of ideas. And then all of a sudden I'll like go and create everything that I've been collecting.
Right, right.
And then, yeah, I'm not very balanced, but that's just the way I work. So,
I do that as a writer though too, where it's like, I'll have something in the back of my head and
yeah,
it's like formulating and the ideas are, kind of mushing
yeah,
around. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, now I can sit down and actually write this
totally.
out.
Yeah, totally. It's like just because you did it today, you've been thinking about it for months. Like it took a long time to get there, but like that's exactly what I do. It just takes a lot longer than it looks like it takes, I guess.
Well,
Because
yeah,
yeah,
what's
you're
what's
always
that old
thinking.
line about like, oh, it took me 10 years to learn how to draw this thing
Yeah.
that it took me 10 minutes to produce. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That is totally it. Yeah. Because now once I have such a system for designing cards that like, yes, actually creating the design takes me an hour, which feels like cheating some days. But I'm like, no, it's not. Like it took a lot to get to be able to do it this fast. So
Because
yeah.
I mean, and especially now that like, yeah, you're full fledged into running the business, like you're not like a startup anymore, like
Yeah.
because how did that change once you went full time, once you sort of like got out from under like your day gig where you were like doing this
Yeah.
full time? How were you able to
Yeah.
balance like suddenly having being responsible for the biz, but then also the design at the same time?
Yeah. Well, I was a lot less stressed. That was absolutely wonderful, not having to like do two jobs anymore. Um, and I tried to force myself to only work 9 to 5, because before, when I had a job and a business, my evenings were working on the business. And so I tried like really consciously to stop doing that, because I was like, no, I need to take some space for myself or I'm going to go insane. Um, and every day is a little different. Like I try to set a calendar being like, I'm going to do these things. And I still like I said, like one week will be all designing and then the next week is all like email marketing. Like it just kind of comes and goes. And I'm also designing a lot of stuff beyond just the cards. Like I'm
Mm,
doing catalogs and marketing materials, which is really closer back to like my roots of what
right.
I grew up designing. Yeah. But like, so this week, like I've been designing a catalog, which it's actually still fun for me because it's like, it's just another book, but it's just like, it's different. So people a lot of times forget about that kind of stuff. Like, especially like my friends and family, I love them dearly, but like they really think all I do is design the cards and then put the cards in sleeves. Like they literally don't know that there's anything else I do, because sometimes I'll be working and they're like, can I come help? And I'm like, I'm writing emails. Like, sure, you want to write emails, but it's just like they think it's just like packaging cards. I'm like, I
Right.
wish that was all I had to do. But
like
yeah,
like
there's
it's
a
a
lot of
Girl Scout
aspects.
troop or something. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and when I've gotten like when I first got a really big order from Barnes and Noble and I had to prep like 4,000 cards, I did. I forced all my friends to come over and I
Oh,
bought them all dinner and I was like, we're sleeving cards. And they were so
nice.
excited because it was my first like big order.
Oh.
Now I do not force them to do that. But it was like, because I was like, I don't know how else to get this done. I had never done it before. So yeah.
Well, because it was a big deal. I mean, like, again, like talking about sort of like, yeah, getting your first like huge order like that. Like, because I've seen you, as I've been watching your business grow, it's like, I'm so happy for you when you like hit these new benchmarks. It was like you got a big order. And then when you like got your own like space where you're not like physically working out of your
Yeah.
home anymore, like now you have like dedicated space where you do the fulfillment
Yeah.
and the design and everything. So, like, what's the next one beyond that you're aiming for? Like,
Hiring an employee.
yeah,
My next
yeah,
one. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be soon,
yeah.
unfortunately. But that is the next goal because I would like to be able to step away from like packing orders.
The
Like
daily
it's just,
hustle, right?
yeah, the daily hustle. Like I would like to be able to focus more on the big picture things. But right now, like I'm doing everything. Um, so the next would be hiring someone to like do all the fulfillment for me. And that would also make it easier for me to like step away and take vacation and stuff like that because I wouldn't have to be there packing the boxes. Like I can work remotely easier. I mean, not forever, but for a week or two at a
Right.
time, as long as someone else is doing the physical stuff. But right now it's just me. So I am doing all of that. But yeah,
Well,
that's the next
speaking
goal.
of like wishing that you had time to get away, like I first knew you as like a world traveler. So it's like, is that
Uh,
something you want to like get back to doing? Or like talk to me a little bit more about like, yeah,
yeah,
the years that you spent, you were
yeah,
doing the full on digital nomad thing for a while.
yeah. I was digital nomading for almost 2 years, like totally
Wow.
had given up my apartment and home in Chicago and had stored everything in my parents' house and I left, which was awesome and I loved it. But I eventually, after 2 years, like it is exhausting. Like it is your highest highs and your lowest lows, just like always being on the road like that. And so I would love to do something like that again in a much smaller format. Like I would love to
Yeah.
travel for like a month or two at a time and make like another city my home base for that month or two. But I don't think I could do years at a time anymore like that. When I did that, I was like 23. I was very like young and energetic, and now I'm very unenergetic at 30. Um,
Well, and again, and
no,
it's
but
also like the physical aspects, like we were just joking about, like cards are physical objects, but yeah, you are
yeah,
tied to like your
yeah.
inventory in some sense.
Exactly. Exactly. Like as someone who like loved to travel and wanted to work remotely again, creating a business with like that needs a physical presence, I'm like, what was I doing? Why was I thinking that? But I mean, it was the right choice for me. But yeah. Um, but if I have an employee someday, then I could leave them for a month or two at a time and I could go travel a little bit more. So that's the
Right.
that's
So
the long goal.
to all the listeners out there, put your
Mhm.
applications in to Sadie so we
Yeah.
can get her back on the road again. Like
Yeah.
if you're
Listen,
looking for
I've
some
just been
freelance work. Yeah.
I've hired people for a couple like weeks to month when I've like been on trips, but it's just been like a one off for
Yeah, yeah.
vacation. So yeah, so I'm like, all right, yeah, I gotta. Well, then the other thing too is that I'm like, if I'm gonna travel more, Chicago's an expensive city. Would I be better off moving the physical presence of the business somewhere cheaper? If
Right.
I'm not going to be there every single day anyways, like,
Right.
rent for things like that could be a lot cheaper elsewhere. So it's like a weird consideration too that I'm like, oh, does the business move out of Chicago? But,
Wow.
who
Yeah.
knows?
That's
That's like right? It's a big picture thing, but I'm not changing it this year, but maybe someday we'll see.
well, but I'm just obsessed with tell me about, yeah, like your favorite places that you did travel to, like in that era of 2 years.
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing photos of like Highland cows in Scotland, and I was like,
Yes.
you are living the dream, absolutely, if you're
They're
hanging out with
so
like Highland
cute.
cows. Yeah.
Yeah, I was only in Scotland for like a couple days when I went, but like, yes, the cows were great. We were literally on a tour and they just pulled over the bus at the side of farm so we could pet cows. Like that is the dream come true.
So good.
Um, but some of the other places that I like really loved is I spent some time in Lisbon and loved it there. I spent some time in Budapest, really loved it. Thailand, I spent a whole month in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which was amazing. Buenos Aires was another city that I spent time there and loved. So yeah, I mean the 2 years I really kind of hit every corner, not every, many corners of the globe. Um, yeah, and I realized that the thing all these places have in common is they're they're big cities, but they still are walkable and have like good public transit. So that they're like, I'm definitely a city girl, but I'm a small city girl, you know, like, yeah. So,
Do
and
you
all just
follow
places with like good food.
the food writer Alicia Kennedy? Do you read her stuff?
No, I don't.
A,
I
she's
gotta look.
fantastic, but B, she was just posting. She lives in Puerto Rico, and she was in Miami for some work event or something,
Hmm.
and she accidentally forgot her toothbrush. But she was like, "What's up with being in a city where I can't just walk to a bodega on the corner?" She was like, "The cities that are the
Yeah,
best cities are the ones that are walkable and that have you can easily
yeah,
just go and get what you need without having to drive
yeah.
all over Kingdom Come looking for it. So that's
Exactly.
a really
Like,
good
I
point.
don't
Yeah,
ever want to have to drive. And there's also something cool about a lot of these cities that, like, I mean, Chicago does this too. You can walk from neighborhood to neighborhood and you can just like continue walking the whole way. So it might be like a 2 hour walk that you wouldn't like actually walk to where you're going, but there isn't a highway in the middle. Like, you can truly walk from downtown out to where you live, in the neighborhoods and like really see the city as you like meander through. So, like, and like I remember doing that in like Prague was an amazing city for
mm.
that. Like you could just walk the whole way. And so yeah, that's something I also really love.
Yeah, as a college student, that was like a mind-blowing moment when I was in London, like for the
Mhm.
summer. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll get on the tube and I'll go wherever. And then you realize like I could have just walked that a lot faster, but it's like,
Yeah.
you don't know where you are. And you're like, oh, I see on my map that it says like, oh,
Yeah.
get off at such and such tube stop. So you just do. But then like once you
Yeah.
learn how those like correspond like over the city streets, you're like, oh, wait a
Yeah.
minute. Like that's another consideration too. Yeah.
Yeah. That is a weird moment when you finally like learn a city well enough that you're like, oh yes, I know how to get between these places. So yeah, so much of what I did when I traveled is I would just like endlessly walk. Like I would just go for when I
Mm,
had nothing to do instead of like sitting around, like I'm just gonna go for another walk and just
yeah.
like see what you find. So that's something I love doing. I never was good at planning. I would just get somewhere and just show up and meander around and see what I found.
Yeah, my husband doesn't love to travel, but a couple of years ago we were on like a package tour with his dad,
Hmm.
wanted to do one of those like, one city every day for 11 days kind of trips.
Yeah.
And which was fun and fine, but like the day that we were in Paris, we were able to break away from the trip for the evening. Like they all like went
Yeah.
to some like corny show at the Moulin Rouge, and so we were just kind of walking around and did the same thing
Yeah.
where it was like I don't know where we are. We kind of started off by like, Shakespeare and Company, and then just like wandered and found like a little cafe to have dinner in, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
just the
And
best. Yeah.
those are the best. The memories like that you don't like super plan. And I still do travel with groups and stuff to it. And no one's
Sure.
immune to it. Like it's still fun to do those like something different every day kind of trips too. So
Yeah.
there's a lovely balance of all of them for sure.
Well, I need the card now too. Like, congratulations on coming home after 2 years abroad, right? Like,
Yeah, that's true. Like sadly coming back to your life, yeah, I don't know. That's a good one. I don't have anything for that. See, that's the thing is that people are always suggesting things like this too, and I'm like, I don't have that. I need to make that. Like,
does that get
so the
annoying
list
though?
goes.
Like the sort of ideas? Is it like being like a
Well,
playwright who's like, stop giving me ideas, for plays?
well, I like the ideas of like a topic I need to hit. When
Mm,
people give me the exact verbiage they want the card to say, I'm like, that's not
like,
funny. I
don't
don't
do that. Yeah.
like you're not funny. I mean, some people are funny, but a lot of them I'm just like,
Mostly
that's
no.
stupid. But a lot of times I do appreciate when they're like, yes, like a topic. Like someone said to me recently, like, do you have a card for like becoming sober? And I was like,
Mm,
no, but I absolutely should. So things like that are actually very helpful. But when people like everyone also wants to put puns on greeting cards, and like a lot of people do it, it's great. But people be like, write this, and it's just like a pun, and I'm like, no,
why
someone
would
else
I?
does that.
Why would I do
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
go buy it from someone else. Like that's the thing is that people don't understand, which is crazy to me. They don't understand the concept of like a brand. Like they'll tell me things that are just like funny, but it's just like it's a joke about like cheese. And I'm like, that I love cheese as a person, sure, but like that has nothing to do with like who the company is.
Right.
Also it's like to me it seems obvious, but I guess it's not as obvious to others.
Like, give me a
So
feminist cheese joke and then maybe
yeah,
we have something. Like,
exactly. Yeah, I'm like, can you make it feminist? If you can make it feminist, I'll do it. But otherwise, no, thank you.
See, I'm gonna be chewing on this for the rest of the day now. Like, what is a good feminist cheese joke? Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, if you think of one, I haven't thought of one yet, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Because yeah, I guess this is a dumb question, but then yeah, you write all of the cards too. I mean, that goes without saying,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, some of them, like some people, like I do have people that help me, absolutely, like friends and family. And then like when I work with these other people, they help me. And some of them are just generic enough phrases that like no one's thought twice about. But yeah, that's like the ones that try to stand out are things that like I write that are different. And it feels weird because like I don't identify as a writer. Like I've never really been much of a writer, but you do have to write the cards. Like you have to think of what they're gonna say. So yeah.
well, I think that speaks to like, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show, like your internal convictions about like politics and
Yeah.
feminism, whatever, that it doesn't have to come from like, ooh, a clever, whatever. It comes from the
Yeah.
message and it comes from your heart rather
Yeah,
than your brain, so to
exactly.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's like a lot of them just like are my internal dialogue, as weird as it is. Like that's what it is. Well, and that's why I guess no one has necessarily told me this, but I've always felt like I'm like better at writing like a speech than I am at writing like an essay because for me it's very natural to just like write how I talk and write how I think, but I can't really write in like a more formal sense. So this kind of just like feels natural to me because it's like it's just a thought. It's not like they're not always grammatically correct. Frequently they're not, and they upset people. But like I write how we talk, not how we write, I guess.
Well, and that's what makes them so winning. I mean, because again, that's like it's the voice and the heart of it is more compelling than it being grammatically correct. Kick those people in the
Yeah.
nuts. Like whoever's criticizing your cards for not being
Yeah.
correct, like come to me, like bring them to
Yeah.
me, an editor, and I will tell them to go jump off a short pier. Like,
Jump off a chauffeur. Or just you don't have to buy it. That's the
yeah,
other thing that drives me crazy is when people like complain. I'm like, then don't buy it. I don't
yeah,
care. Like I
walk
didn't make
away,
this for
just
you.
walk
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. People on social media, like, I don't want this. And I'm like, okay, congrats. Like, who
Thanks.
cares?
It's not
Yeah.
for
I'm
you.
like, if I offended you, like, and also like my brand is very casual. So like I'll talk about things like dating and like friends and stuff like that on Instagram. Whereas a lot of brands, like, no, you wouldn't share your dating life, but like that's just part of my brand. And I've had people respond and be like, this, you shouldn't be sharing this. And I'm like, okay, then leave. Like then I don't know what to tell you. Like it's my company. I can do whatever I want with it. I'm sorry you don't like it. Like,
Yeah,
so
this is, yeah, I do not envy you. Like, yeah, because what is that like having to run a company
so
and then be on social media? Because it's like I'm just on social media as
so
a person. Like,
I've pulled back from social media a lot because it is really stressful. And I also have my social media super, super like locked down. Like you can't comment like the business page, my personal page, whatever, but like the business page, you can't comment on it if you're not a follower. You can't message me if I don't follow you back. Like a lot of stuff like that I kind of have it set up in a way that like the other businesses I work with probably don't realize because I follow them and I engage with them. So they're allowed to engage with me, but like random strangers can't engage with me. Because something that happened a lot like in 2020 is like I would post something political and like it's very stressful times. Like it's just like very emotionally charged stuff. And people would agree with me, which is great and wonderful. But then they would kind of like trauma dump their emotions on me because like
oh
I
yeah,
was like I felt the same as them. And so like they're like, I just need to tell someone. And I'm like, yes. And I'm glad we agree, but I can't listen to that from so many people. And so like that's a hard thing that you never would expect to happen because like these people are your supporters, they're like on the same side as you, but like I can't be anyone's therapist. I definitely can't be everyone's therapist. So like I kind of had to lock down stuff like that. So like these people like can't message me, which is like it's a shitty like thing because I don't want to have to be a bad person, but I got to protect my own sanity. So
well, I'm
yeah, and
glad
then
that
like
that was you're saying that was like, oh, it was people who agreed with you who were like trying to take up your time. I was like afraid to
yeah,
hear the stories of
well
like nasty comments too.
oh there are those too, but those people just like get blocked. I don't even feel the need
Yeah.
to engage with them. Whereas when someone sends you a kind message, like you want to engage with them even if you're exhausted. But no, this is why like there's the feature that like they can't comment on my posts if they don't follow me because like most of the trolls on the internet have so little effort. They want to comment nasty things, but if there's any step in the way, like them having to follow you, it's too much effort and they don't do it, which is funny to me because that's like such a low barrier to entry. But like
It's too much.
that's it. It's too much for them. And like now Facebook has a feature that like you have to follow someone for 24 hours to comment on them, which is even
Oh
better because
wow.
then
Wow.
like, yeah, like you truly have to follow them. You can't follow them and be a troll. So thankfully there have been some tools like that introduced by social media platforms that help, but no, of course it's not everything. But and I post less political stuff now than I would like to because I just can't always deal with it either. So
the bandwidth is
like
just
there
not
was
there. Yeah.
Yeah, like there was some stuff I was recently thinking about posting on TikTok, but then I realized I'm like, I just don't want to deal with the trolls. And like it's sad that like they're succeeding because they're stopping me from like speaking, but you gotta balance your own sanity for sure. So I found the balance is right for me. Like I create stuff and I do stuff, but like I'm not out there all day, every day, like on the internet.
That seems really healthy. That seems incredibly healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, gotta figure it out. It takes a while to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so what's next? Like what's coming up for you? Like what's on the horizon? What are you excited about? I mean,
Yeah.
we were just talking before we hit record that like you're already done with the holidays, like from a biz
Yeah.
perspective, and you're thinking about 2024. Yeah.
Well, 2024 is an election year.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, I will be launched back into that chaos, whether I want to or not. So I'm working on creating a lot of products and a lot of stuff that are political adjacent. Like they're not necessarily going to be like vote for so and so, but it's like more specific political values. Like I'm doing things like buttons, and I'm hopefully going to do posters and some other things like that. Um, like more stickers about values and stuff like that to try to just like help people voice their opinion. I'm doing so I'm gonna have like a specific part of my website that's like just for political stuff and things like
Nice.
that. And try to promote that. And so yeah, it feels weird to be like so focused on that kind of stuff, but it's potential. People wanna they wanna use their voice and they wanna say stuff. And so I will probably, as political events unfold, even though I don't usually do like quick time things, I probably will next year because it's more important for me to make statements about political things than it is about pop culture things. So like
Yeah.
if you remember a couple years ago, like Bernie with mittens took the internet by storm. So like
Yeah.
if things like that happen, I will probably jump on board next year. So I'm also like setting up a framework for myself on how to do that and how to do it well without going crazy.
Yeah,
So
without burning
yeah,
yourself
like
out. Yeah.
exactly, like thinking strategically and like, pre-writing some email templates and stuff like that so that it's really easy for me to like just drop and go and do stuff like that. So yeah, political adjacent is 2024.
Political adjacent. I like that. Yeah. It's like we're involved, we're looking at it, and yet we're protecting, we're protecting ourselves, we're protecting our space.
Yeah, exactly. Because like if well, like Biden running again, like isn't as exciting when it's the second time than the first time. So like I don't really know that we need more like vote for Biden stuff.
Yeah.
But whatever else happens, we'll see. We'll go with it and we'll see.
There will be so many things that none of us can predict at this moment because it's a shit show. Like
that is so true. We'll just have to wait and find out together.
Well, so while we're waiting for the next round of shit show, where can people find you and people, who want to like not have weird parasocial relationships with you, but just follow your goings on social media and other places?
You can still hang out with me on Instagram. I might respond if you don't trauma dump. So my Instagram is 20some.design. My website is also 20some.design, not .com, just .design.
Cool.
Pretty much that's where I am on everything. I'm on TikTok. I don't really use it because I hate it, but I am there. Where else can you find me? Those are the big places, Instagram and my website. I post the most on Instagram because I am a millennial, so that's how it goes.
I'm still on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Fun. It's my vibe. What can I say?
Yeah.
There's one other big thing. In December, the One of a Kind show in Chicago. So if you're in Chicago and want to come shop, it's at Merchandise Mart, December 7th through 11th. So I will be selling there in person. So if you want to come hang out in person, that's where I'll be. So
awesome. I'm definitely going to link that up so everyone knows where to find you. That sounds super fun.
Yeah, because that's the only holiday market I'm doing this year. Last year I did a couple. This year we're just doing the one. So come there or come nowhere.
That's awesome. Yeah, to have that sort of like sense of personal power and groundedness to be like, come find me at this one place, and you're not like sweaty and desperate and trying to be at every possible show.
Yeah.
It's like I know my worth, I know my value. You will come to this one show if you would like to engage with me.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm trying to channel into the world.
Oh, I love it. And we will look for the Don't Date Republicans sign proudly
Mm-hmm.
hanging.
Yes, yes. I got to print that one out big again.
Well, Sadie, thank you so much for spending time with me today and just talking through your biz.
Thank you
Like, this
for
was like
having me.
so inspiring. Like, you're so grounded and yet so creative that, like, yeah, I just feel like, like everything is possible. You know, you have this sense of sort of like,
Oh,
you can do it, like stick with it and just get your stuff out there.
thank you. I don't always feel like that internally. So I'm glad that it sounds positive to everyone because there are highs and lows. So I'm glad I can share the highs.
But overall, yeah, I think that, yeah, you're,
Yeah.
I totally understand the chaos in the inside, you know, but
Yeah.
outwardly you're rocking it. So
Yes. Love that. Well, thank you for having me. It's been
no, this has
fun.
been awesome. Thanks again for listening to this episode of I'll Follow You. Don't forget that you can always find show notes over on my website, queenofpeaches.com. Links to and for previous episodes are listed there as well. While you're there, I hope you might find another episode that strikes your fancy. All my recordings are assembled in my home studio using the free open-source cross-platform editing software Audacity. I use a Logitech G Snowball Ice microphone and Shure SRH 440 professional studio headphones. The theme music is from the song Without You, written by Brian Cremens and performed by the band 1000. This podcast is made possible by the fact that I work a full-time job, am happily married, and don't have any children. That's what really goes on behind the scenes of this artistic life.